Everyone loves Bluey and Bingo, but very few people know that they were supposed to have an older brother. That's right, have you ever heard about Bluey's lost brother who passed away before she was even born? Trauma. This revelation happened in a subtle way in the season 2 episode The Show, where Bluey and Bingo put on a little play for their parents, telling the story of how the two of them fell in love and had their daughters. Bluey played Bandit and Bingo played Chili. When it was time to act out the moment their mother became pregnant for the first time, Bingo placed a balloon under her shirt to represent a pregnant belly. Everything was fine up to that point, but then the balloon popped and the mood instantly changed. Chili went quiet but seemed strangely uncomfortable, while Bandit noticed her discomfort and held her hand. It seemed like an overreaction to a balloon popping, but that's because the balloon popping under Bingo's shirt was just a trigger that brought back the memory of the day Chili lost her first child before he was born, while he was still in her womb. Perhaps the tragedy happened during labor, something that unfortunately happens quite often in real life. It may sound like we're just theorizing, but Joe Brum, the creator of Bluey, confirmed in an interview that Chili really did lose a baby during pregnancy. The series touched on this subject so subtly that many people didn't even notice. But this wasn't the only time clues about Chili and Bandit's deceased son were hidden in an episode of the show. Ready to discover everything we know about Bluey's lost brother?
You know what's starting. It's another awesome Cinewave!
Name. Since the series avoids addressing this dark subject at all costs, the name of Bluey's older brother has never been revealed, and that only makes the whole thing even sadder. Did Bandit and Chili at least already have a name picked out for the pup? Or did he pass away so early that they hadn't even decided yet? Either way, in this video, we're going to call him Billy. It's a name that Bandit and Chili could have chosen, considering that the names of their two daughters, Bluey and Bingo, also start with the letter B. Not to mention that both the name Billy and their names have 5 letters. And if we want to talk about even more similarities, Billy ends with a Y, just like Bluey. There are so many similarities that it's easy to imagine that Chili and Bandit's first child really was supposed to be named Billy. Since he never got the chance to be born, the couple may have decided that their next pup would receive a similar name in his honor if that child happened to be a boy as well. However, as we all know, Bluey is a girl, so they simply chose a name that sounded similar to Billy, but also worked for a girl. Bluey fit perfectly because it's very similar to Billy, while also referencing the girl's blue coloring. Age. Another thing we're not sure about when it comes to Billy is, how old would he be if he were still alive today? It was never revealed when Chili had that pregnancy, but it's reasonable to assume that it happened a few years before Bluey was born, since Chili may have taken some time before becoming pregnant again due to the trauma of losing a baby. Now, something that may help us figure out when this happened is taking a look at Bluey's parents' ages. We don't know Chili's birth date, but we do know that Bandit was born in 1978, which means he was around 40 years old when the series began in 2018. Bluey started the show at 6 years old, meaning her father was about 34 when she was born. Chili is probably around the same age as Bandit, since both of them were children when they met in the flashback from the episode Fairy Tale. Sure, nobody knows whether that really happened or if it's just one of Bandit's false memories, but the fact that there's even a debate about it suggests that Chili really was a child at that time. Taking Bandit's age into account, Billy was probably born when Bandit was around 29 years old, 5 years before Bluey. Many couples have their first child around that age, and that 5-year gap between Billy and Bluey may also represent the amount of time Chili needed before feeling ready to try having another pup after such a tragedy. So if Billy were alive today, he would be between 11 and 12 years old. We all have to agree that it would be amazing to see Bluey and Bingo with an older brother around 12 years old, creating a dynamic similar to the one Bandit and Stripe had with their older brother Radley, who used to keep an eye on the two of them when they were kids. So what do you think? How would you feel if the story of Chili's first pregnancy were told in an episode of Bluey Season 4? Leave a comment below with #Billy and share your opinion. Appearance. Unfortunately, Billy didn't live long enough for anyone to discover what he would have looked like as he grew up, and that's absolutely heartbreaking. So all we can do is imagine what Billy might have been like. Considering that Bluey looks a lot like her father and Bingo looks a lot like her mother, it's interesting to think that Billy would have been a mix of both of them. In other words, instead of inheriting only one parent's features, he would have had Chili's brown coloring along with Bandit's blue markings, resulting in a very cute and unique appearance. In the world of of Bluey, it seems much more common for pups to inherit the appearance of only one parent rather than becoming a mix of both, very different from how dogs work in real life. However, Billy wouldn't have been the first multicolored dog in the series. Uncle Radley, Bandit's older brother, has that kind of look, and he stands out quite a bit, especially when we compare his appearance to that of his younger brothers. It's funny to think that Billy would have shared many similarities with Uncle Radley. Bedroom. One of the saddest things about Billy is that, by all appearances, his bedroom was already prepared before the tragedy happened. That's what we see in the Season 3 episode Bedroom, where Bluey gets her own room after spending years sharing one with Bingo. But why did the little blue pup only get her own space after all that time if the other room already existed? The answer is that during that time, the room was filled with baby items, such as a crib. It's possible that Bluey and Bingo slept there when they were babies. However, the sadness Chili shows while removing those items from the room suggests that it represents something much deeper, the memory of a child who passed away far too soon. Chili even ends up crying in this episode, as if she has never fully recovered from the trauma of losing Billy, and because of that, never touched his room. Friends. Billy's passing didn't affect only his family, but the entire community as well. If he had been born, he would have grown up and made many friends, just like his sisters did. In fact, some characters we've already seen in the series would almost certainly have been friends with him. A great example is Captain, Mackenzie's older friend. He's 12 years old, which is about the age Billy would probably be today, so it's likely the two of them would have gone to school together. That means Mia would probably have been Billy's friend too. She's one of Bluey's older friends. In fact, Mia and Captain have feelings for each other, but maybe that would have been different if Billy were alive. Could Mia have fallen for him instead of Captain? If we think about it that way, there might even be love triangles in Bluey if Billy had survived.
And if you're not subscribed yet, you know what to do. Click and hit the bell so you don't miss any videos.
Pregnancy complications. Unfortunately, many mothers lose their children during childbirth or at some point during pregnancy, so Chili losing Billy in this way is quite realistic. However, there may be a deeper reason why this happened, and it could be connected to the fact that she is a red heeler. In real life, red heelers are beautiful and lovable dogs, but they can face serious difficulties when it comes to having puppies. It seems that this issue may also exist in the world of Bluey, which could explain why Chili's first pregnancy did not have a happy outcome. And the proof that this was intentional on the writer's part is Chili's sister Brandy, who struggles with the very same issue even more. From what we've seen, Brandy tried to get pregnant for years without success, to the point that she spent 4 years without seeing Chili because she felt that meeting her nieces would be too painful. Brandy only recently became pregnant, appearing with a baby bump in the sign. Guilt. Losing Billy is something that deeply traumatized Chili, and at this point that's no secret. She feels uncomfortable whenever she's reminded of it, and from what we can tell, even cries when she visits the room that should have been his. This only makes Bluey an even more realistic show, because it demonstrates that a trauma like this is never completely overcome, even after many years. And do you know the worst part? Deep down, Chili feels responsible for what happened, even though that makes absolutely no sense since she had no control over the situation whatsoever. This guilt shows up strongly in the episode Baby Race, which is one big flashback to when Bluey was a baby who hadn't yet learned how to walk. Chili was working incredibly hard to help her daughter learn to walk, and when she realized that the other puppies were reaching that milestone before Bluey, she became depressed and started thinking she was a terrible mother. It's hard to believe that an amazing mom like Chili would ever think that about herself, isn't it? This may be the same guilt she's been carrying ever since losing Billy, constantly looking for yet another reason to blame herself. Thankfully, Chili eventually realized that she was doing her best and that she needed to respect Bluey's own pace of development. Bluey. Another person who may have been affected by the tragedy is Bluey herself. She wasn't alive when Billy passed away, but she may know what happened if one of her parents told her about it. In fact, that could be the reason why the little blue pup values her younger sister Bingo so much. Bluey and Bingo rarely fight. Most of the time, they're playing together without any problems at all. Very different from many other children's cartoons, where siblings argue much more often and over much sillier things. Meanwhile, you can count on one hand the number of times Bluey and Bingo have actually had a serious disagreement, and we're pretty sure that every single time it happened, they made up very quickly. That's a level of maturity children rarely have. But the pieces start to fit together if the reason is that Bluey knows her older brother passed away. That realization may have taught her to be grateful for having a younger sister, and to cherish the time they spend together because you never know when that time might come to an end. It's almost over, but until then, you can stay with us. There are 2 super fun videos waiting for you. Thanks, and see you next time.